Welcome and thank everybody for joining the webinar today. Better cash flow, better sell-through, and more fun for your store. So everything that we do with Dan is always fun. Today's webinar is the first and the start of a new partnership with Dan. He's going to be sharing his knowledge and his proprietary data with our team so that we can bring this expertise to our clients directly. So we are excited to be kicking that off. Just to give you a little background on Dan, he's been supporting retailers for a lot of years, more years than we want to say, Dan, but
That's right.
in 18 countries. So he's all over the place. He works with the small mom and pop stores all the way up to the, mid locations, larger chains, 50 plus stores. So he's got a lot of expertise and experience that he brings from the retail world. Today, he's going to showcase his open to buy planning with us, with merchandise planning, open to buy forecasting, and then also some of his retail consulting that he shares out with us. Some key benefits of this is going to be improving profitability, reducing waste and excess inventory, strengthening cash flow. So some real good stuff that every retailer wants to be knowledgeable about. With that, I will go ahead and hand it off to Dan and let him get us started.
Terrific. Well, thank you, Paul, for that introduction. Yeah, I don't want to admit to how many years I'm doing this, but let's just say I know Sandy and Mick for decades. Okay. And I go back in Retail Pro. When I first was working in Retail Pro, I was installing Retail Pro. The first version I ever installed was version 2.97.
That doesn't age you at all.
Oh, yeah. And we were installing it on computers that I can tell you, when I think about that computer that we installed then, if you had that, if that was your phone today, you'd throw it away. It's not even close. So there you go. But retail is retail no matter where you go. We work in 18 countries, and no matter where we are, it's all the same challenges. It's all the same stuff. So the concepts are the same. It's just a question of making sure that those concepts are clear to you guys and making sure that you understand what we're looking at. And, right now, at this red hot second in history, right, it's a little crazy out there. We've got some crazy gas prices happening. We've got some questions about the economy. We've got all these things that are going on. But let me just tell you something, okay? When I started Retail Smart Guys nearly 20 years ago, it was right at the start of the recession. So I opened up Retail Smart Guys, I started the thing up, and then 2 weeks later, Saks went 75% off. The recession was in full swing, and I thought, I'll be homeless in a week, maybe 10 days. Could be over fast, But as we started to work with retailers who were facing some of these challenges and trying to figure the whole thing out, what I discovered is that there are ways to make retail stores cash flow and generate more cash and more profitability, regardless of the economic situation that's happening, regardless of what's happening in the world, regardless of what's happening in your own backyard. We went through with the recession, we went through it with COVID, we're going through a little bit of it now, but there are things we can do to make things better. So I'm going to share all that with you today, and I'm super excited in our partnership with Big Hairy Dog. Like I say, I know Mick and Sandy for forever. For a little while, by the way, for those of you that don't know, my face was on Mick's drum kit. Just so you know, okay? That's how close that goes. Anyway, so so we're going to go through some of those pieces. I'm going to give you today 3 things you can do right away to improve your cash flow, okay? But I'm going to preface this by saying there is nothing more important than the proper measurement and assorting and curating and manicuring your inventory so that you have the best assortment for your customers. There is no more important job you have. There's nothing more important that you can do. These things are all going to help in terms of putting your attention on those things, but that is absolutely the most important thing, okay? With that, let me share my screen. And Paula, you tell me, can we see the presentation right now?
We can.
Okay, good. So we'll start from the beginning. Here we go. So here's 3 tweaks to improve some cash flow for you. Okay. Frankly, I'm in the business of open to buy and merchandise planning, and all that has ever been about is cash flow planning. by the way. It was invented in the 1970s because and it was invented in the department store world. What happened was there were all these buyers that were buying stuff, and the financial people were like, "It's great that you're buying all this stuff, but like, at what point does this turn into actual cash?" And so open to buy planning was invented so that there could be some predictability of both the selling and the receiving and the net cash flow as a result of that. Okay, we'll talk about that more as we go through, but here we go. First, a little bit about me. Over 40 years of retail experience, worked in specialty retail for pretty much most, if not all that time, but I have worked with the majors. I have worked with Walmart and Target and Sears and Penny and stuff like that. Okay, when I'm not spending time with retailers, you can see that I've got some time in TV and film land. I live in LA, and I think it's in the city charter for the city of Los Angeles that 1 out of 3 people has to say they're an actor. But I do get to do that. I'm probably best known as Larry David's lawyer on Curb Your Enthusiasm, although I was just recently on Euphoria. Some of you have to get your parents' permission to watch that. But I was there for a minute on Euphoria. I'm there with Ernie Hudson and et cetera. So done a couple of different things. But I'm really focused on inventory and planning, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Okay? So the basis of this discussion is a book written a long time ago by a guy named Russell Conwell called Acres of Diamonds. And he recommends that you dig in your own backyard, okay, before you go looking elsewhere for places to find money, to find profitability and cash flow. This has never been more true than in the case of retail. And I say that because sometimes when I talk to retailers, I go, so where do you think your growth is going to come from? And they go, well, you know, I think I'm going to open another store. I'm going to get another line. I'm going to hire another salesperson, et cetera, et cetera. And you know what? All that stuff is great, but none of it is internal to the business. All of it is external. And there's lots and lots of things you can find that are internal to your business. And we're going to look at just a few of those today. And by doing those, you can do this. And these are things, by the way, you can do right now, really without spending any money. So there you go. That's got to be exciting, right? Here we go. So all of these things are not theory. They are actual examples from real life stores. These are real people. These are their stores. I tried to pick around the same annual volume for the stores so they were comparable. But these are all real stories, real stores, real data, not made up numbers in conference rooms or stuff like that. Okay? A couple things you got to be willing to do. Number one, you got to be willing to look at some key metrics. Okay? There's that old saying, if you don't measure, you can't improve, right? Got to be willing to change. You do what you've always done, you get what you've already got or less, right? And you got to be willing to act. I find all too often people do all kinds of analysis, and then don't do anything different. You got to decide to do something different, especially nowadays. I think this is the time to start rethinking how you attack the store, how you attack your merchandise, how you look at staffing, how you look at your customers, et cetera, et cetera. This is a big time for a big change. Right? Okay. This next slide is all about financial stuff. I'm not going to spend much time on it because it's financial. But the main thing you have to get out of this thing is that there are 2 kinds of expenses. There's fixed expenses and variable expenses. And we're going to look at one called selling cost. That's the main one. Okay? So here's how you calculate selling cost. Okay? You take what you paid an employee and you divide it by what they brought in. Okay? So if I have an employee and I paid them $1,700 for the month of January, that does not include benefits, doesn't include taxes. It's just what I paid them. Okay? If you take what you paid them, you divide it into the sales they achieved, right? So that person in that month sold $12,500 worth of stuff. Okay? $1,700, which is what I paid them, divided into $12,500 is 13.6. That's their selling cost as a percentage. Okay? Now, you want to measure this by each of your employees. You want to measure it by month, weekly if you can, but certainly by month and certainly annually, okay? And compare that to the total store, okay? Now, let's see how that works in practice, okay? So here's a store. Their total expenses were 42%. Oops, sorry, let me go back. Total expenses were 42%. 23% are fixed expenses, didn't change, like rent and stuff like that. 19% are variable expenses, and 12% were selling expenses, like we just looked at, right? What we paid those people divided by what they sold. So we said, okay, well, what if we could lower the selling expense just by 2%. I'm not looking to, rebuild the whole store. I'm not looking to do anything crazy. Just a simple 2% change. Okay, watch what happens. So the store did about $750,000. Fixed expenses were 172,493. That didn't change. Okay, but the variable expenses, by reducing selling costs by 2%, went from 142 down to 127. So their profit before cost of goods went from 435 up to 450. That was $15,000 or 3.4% without selling another piece, just by reducing payroll by 2%. Okay, now how do I do that? I get smarter by scheduling. I come up with better compensation plans. Maybe I do something different in the commission plan, which we can talk more about, right? But the idea is that just by looking for fat there and trimming that a little bit, in a store that's doing $750,000, you can find $15,000 there fairly quickly. Okay? Now, one store did even more. They gave the manager a productivity bonus. And they said, look, if you increase sales by 5%, okay, and we still keep that 10% instead of 12% selling cost, okay, look what happens. So this was the original. This was the slide we just looked at, right? Now we have a 5% increase. What happens? Well, the fixed expenses all stay the same because they're fixed expenses, right? Fixed expenses, okay? But now the variable went from 142 down to 127. Now it's up to 133. Why? Because we had a 5% increase in sales. But with a 5% increase in sales and a slight increase in the variable, look how much cash this generates. So just by looking at this and really assessing how much you're spending on payroll and how you're working with your folks, and are they actually getting better at how they're doing, is key, right? If you think about this equation, right, the selling cost, if it's what you paid them divided by what they sold, well, one thing you can look at is how you're scheduling them to make sure you're not burning money on scheduling. But the other thing is to make sure they know how to sell, right? Do they understand the product? Do they have really good product knowledge? They know what they're doing with that. Do they are they strong at all those things, that kind of thing? And we can talk again more about that as we get into this thing, right? But tweaking both of those sides of the equation can produce significant amounts of cash. Okay, I know there's probably going to be some questions that come up as a result of this, so I'll leave time for that at the end. Okay, but I'm sorry, I keep hitting the wrong button here. But that's some serious money right there. Okay. We have more to do, though. Here we go. The next one's markdowns. Now, markdowns are one of the top 3 expenses that a retail store faces beyond payroll and rent. Okay? So if I could do better at markdowns, I could also make some money. So look at this store. Doing similar volume, again, around that 750,000 more. They were doing 21% in markdown. Okay, so they were spending $157,000 in markdowns. Their gross profit was 45.5%. And they're generating $341 in cash margin. So we said, okay, what if I can improve the markdowns again just by 2%? Well, again, the revenue doesn't change. I'm not selling anything more. But my markdowns drop 157 down to 142. Okay, so I pick up a point in gross profit, and I generate an extra $7,500 right there. Okay, now fair enough. You could turn to me and say, wait a second. Just what? Just pick those markdowns? Thanks for that tip, Dan. Wish I'd thought of that myself. I understand that. It's a fair point. But here's the thing. When you think about markdowns, you have to think about what's causing them, right? And you could divide the markdowns into sort of 2 different buckets. There's markdowns that are created on the selling side and markdowns that are created on the buying side, right? On the selling side, it's that the people don't know how to sell it. They don't know why it's there. They don't have enough product knowledge. They're getting customer complaints and don't know how to field those. The sizing is wrong, and they didn't report back to the buyer, hey, listen, an extra small is really an extra large. They got the thing labeled wrong, or anything like that, right? That's on the selling side. Or in some stores, I've seen this, they just have a complete disagreement. They don't like it. They don't think it should be there. I've seen that too, and you got to fix that because otherwise they're never going to sell it. That's on the selling side. On the buying side, it's a bad buy, or I didn't have a good enough, department class, subclass structure, or I bought it too early, I bought it too late, I had the wrong price point. the flow was wrong, et cetera, right? Or again, I didn't really have a solid markdown strategy. I just dumped a bunch of goods in there and hope for the best, right? All of these are things that are fixable, right? But if you only take one bit of information from this entire presentation, if there's only one thing you hang on to, if there's only one thing that you implement in your store, it's the last line here in red, which is that every time you sell an extra item, you avoid a future markdown. If you could get your sales staff to have that ingrained in their minds, that every time they sell an extra item, you avoid a future markdown, imagine what that would do to your profitability right there. Okay? All right. So we've done two now. We've reduced our selling costs by just 2%, right? That produced $15,000. We've reduced our markdowns by 2% by understanding where they came from and mitigating all that. That's gave us another $7,500. Okay? The last one, and probably the most important one, is purchases. Now, you spend more money on inventory than anything else, more than rent, people, technology, marketing, anything, right? It is your biggest purchase. It is your biggest expense. It is your biggest asset. It is the thing you need to spend the most amount of time on. And frankly, the whole reason why you have a point of sale system from Big Hairy Dog is so that you can monitor and curate and figure out what your inventory is, and planning helps you figure out what it should be. Okay? Now, again, the company doing around $750 in that range. Their purchases were 55%, which means they were buying $413,000, which left $338 in cash to pay for rent, people, that kind of stuff, right? Okay. We said again, what if I could reduce the purchases by just 2%? Again, not looking for miracles, just a simple 2% reduction. Well, look what happens. Instead of buying $413, I buy $398, which means instead of having $338 available in cash, I have $353 available in cash. I pick up another $15,000. Okay? Now, you don't do that by just going, okay, I'm going to reduce everything I buy by 2%, because you might have classes that are growing. And if you have classes that are growing, you need to make sure that you're feeding those classes. Right now, at this moment in time, it's a sweater year. Okay? So, boy, we really want to make sure we're in sweaters more than jackets. Okay? And especially in women's apparel. That's happening right now. That changes all the time. You got to watch that thing, right? You got to see how that goes. But you got to figure out which ones have better demand that need to be fed, which ones are not growing and they need to be in maintenance mode, right? Okay, well, we've seen the growth we're going to see. Now we need to maintain it. We're seeing some of that like in the toy industry as an example, right? There are certain toys that are sort of leveled off right now. That means we can't keep feeding it. We've got to now get it on maintenance mode. And then there are certain ones that are dropping, okay? And those, we need to basically drop down our inventory level and maybe change how we plan those and maybe shift those dollars into things that are working differently. You got to look at each class as a separate business inside your own store, because they're different, no different than different stocks in a stock portfolio, right? And so a quick reaction, a bad reaction, or just a sweeping reaction can cause this thing to go the wrong way. Okay? Now, it gets done by really good sales forecasting. Okay? Sales forecasting is not, well, let's do what we did last year plus 5%. That's not how that works. Okay? Sales forecasting means you're looking at it by store, by class, and by month. Okay? And you've got to consider not only where you're trending, but where the industry is trending. Okay? You got to be looking at all of those things. Okay? And the most important thing of all this is that you have to look and see, are you doing it? Okay? Are you doing those forecasts? Okay? Because if you're not, you have to adjust your forecast. What most stores do, unfortunately, is they get a forecast from their accountant, just because their accountant says they think they should go, just because they're numbers people, I guess. And then they go, okay, that's my forecast. And then that's it. They don't update it. They don't change it. They don't adjust it. They don't do that. Okay? When we look at sales forecasting, first off, every month we look at what happened in the previous month. How close were we to last month's forecast? I will just tell you very proudly, over 18 countries, about a couple hundred locations, our sales forecasting accuracy was a little over 97%. I'm very proud of that number. We worked very hard to get that to that strength. Okay, so you want to make sure you're monitoring that and making sure you get that really, really under control. Okay, Once you have a good sales forecast, you then need to plan your inventory. Now, your inventory number needs to move every single month, especially for those of you that are in seasonal businesses, right? You know, it's got to peak at the height of spring and drop down at the end of spring so we can get ready for summer. Peak at the height of summer, drop down for fall. Peak at the height of holiday, drop down at the end of the year, right? Even if you're not a seasonal business, you're like that in terms of apparel or clothing or that kind of thing, your business still has months that you sell more and don't sell more, and you want your inventory to be patterned by that. You do that through something called the stock to sales ratio. Okay, the stock to sales ratio plans out how much inventory you need to have each month in each class in each location. Okay, part of that also is considering things like, you know, all the assortments I listed here: vendor assortment, colors, assortment, basics versus fashions. What should your floor consist of? What is the right mix? Okay, this is where the art of being a buyer is the important thing, right? The reason I am a merchandise planner and not a buyer is that you can look at what I'm wearing and figure out that I have no taste level at all. Okay, but what you can see is that we know our numbers, right? And retail stores are a balance of art and science, and that just simply means the art of it is that's the color story that my customers will like. That's a fabrication they'll like. That's a price point they can digest. That's a look that they're going to be into, right? The science part of it is how much of that commodity do I want to have? When do I want it to land? And when do I want to be out of it? And how do I buy the right amount so that A, I sell through it most effectively, B, I mitigate my markdowns, and C, I am constantly and consistently delighting and exciting my customers with new merchandise, okay? You want to flow that inventory in so that there's something new every single month. And again, monitor the results. What was the inventory you should have had? What is the inventory that you ended up with? Okay? What should you have bought? What did you buy? Look at this slide for a minute. The volume's a little different than the ones I've been talking to about, but it tells the entire story, and it's so important. This slide is very much my life story. I want to walk through it with you, okay? It is everything in terms of how retailers make money, okay? So if I have a store doing $1 million and it's turning 2.5 times a year, it means based on average margins, my average inventory is $240,000. Now, if that store could go from a 2.5 turn to a 3 turn, okay, just a half turn change, again, not crazy. What happens is the average inventory across a year goes from 240 down to 199, and you put $41,000 in your pocket. And if I wanted to get to a 3.5 turn, right, a full turn better, okay, it puts $69,000 in your pocket. Now think about that for a minute. If I said to you, you got to put $70,000 in your pocket, and you're currently selling $1 million, right? Based on your current margins, you probably have to sell $1,150,000 to get to that 70, right? That means you're looking for a 15% increase on your sales right now. How many of you are confident that you could produce a 15% increase in sales today? If you're not thinking that, then improving your turns through better inventory planning, by getting you to sell through faster and sell through better and maintaining a lower inventory, which speeds up your turns, that's where the money is made. You know, there's a guy named Eric Schmidt, and he was the CEO of Google for about 10 years. And he is attributed with this quote. He has said that all business problems are solved by revenue. He said revenue solves all business problems, right? So whatever problem it is that you want to solve in your company, whether it's you want to remodel, whether it's you want to hire more people, you want to do more marketing, you want to upgrade, you want to buy new computers, you want to look at another location, you want to give yourself a raise, you want to pay your people more, you want to go on a better vacation, you want to pay for your kids' college, whatever the thing is that you want to do, it is solved by generating more revenue, and that revenue isn't necessarily top-line revenue. Like in this case, the additional revenue comes because we've turned faster. I cannot make this point strongly enough. I've been in the independent retail game for 4 decades now, and what I have learned after all of this time is that turn is the key to profitability in a retail store. And if you turn well, it doesn't matter what else is happening in the world. It doesn't matter. if there's a COVID. It doesn't matter if there's a recession. It doesn't matter what the oil prices are. It is turn that drives cash flow and profitability. It is turn that makes the whole thing go. Okay? I went a little crazy on you there, I know, but it's something I believe in. So that's why I did that. Okay? All right, a couple more things. You guys have great point of sale systems from my friends at Big Hairy Dog. I would tell you that you need to run more than just sales reports. Okay? Sales reports are great, but you need to run on-hand reports. Sometimes I talk to people and I go, do you ever run an on-hand report? They go, no. I go, why? They go, well, it probably wouldn't be right. And I go, here's what I can tell you. Elves did not enter your store in the middle of the night and change your inventory. If your inventory isn't right, it means you're either not buying it right, you're not receiving it right, you're not transferring it right, you're not selling it right, or you didn't count it right. Okay? My friends at Big Hairy Dog can help you figure that out. But if inventory is your biggest asset, you need to run more reports. Run some on-hand reports. See what's there. One of the things I'm a big believer in, it's actually point number 4 here, but it should be further up, okay? One of the things I'm a big believer in is looking for old inventory. You got inventory that's older than 90 days, you got to find that, you got to identify it, you got to get rid of it. There are 4 reasons why old inventory is bad. Reason number 1, you've got money tied up in it. Okay, you've got cash tied up in that. That's keeping you from buying other things. Reason number 2, it affects your marketing. Okay, if your customer comes in this month, sees what they saw last month, they're not coming next month. Reason number 3, it's depressing as hell to look at. Don't you hate looking at stuff you bought 6 months ago that's still there? And even if I came into your store tomorrow and expressed some interest in that, it would take a lot of energy from you to just muster up the excitement to get me to want to buy that thing. But if those 3 things weren't bad enough, it wasn't bad enough that you have money tied up in it, if it wasn't bad enough that it affects your marketing, if it wasn't bad enough that it's depressing to look at, here's the worst of them all. Ready? You're paying tax on it. Because that inventory affects your cost of goods sold. And as a result of it affecting your cost of goods sold, it affects your taxable revenue. Check with your CPA. Okay, you want to run that by them, but getting out of the old inventory is a super important thing. And the last one that's on here, I think that's probably the most important, is this, especially when we get into difficult economic times. Expense control, while important, is not a long-term strategy, not a plan for growth, and not going to get you out of any of these situations. Look, if you look at any business publication that there is, okay, if you look at any business publication that's out there at all, okay, what I can tell you is this. They never go to the controller and say, how'd you do it? He says, I lowered my shipping costs by 8%. Doesn't happen that way, right? They're always talking to the marketing guy. They're talking to the sales guys. They're talking to the guy that develops the product and stuff like that, right? Expense control is important. You've got to look at those things like we do with selling costs, right? Like we do with markdowns. But you've got to plan for growth, and you've got to plan for improvements, and you've got to plan for making those things better to make that all work. Okay, I'm going to tell you one more story about that because I think it's important. We got hired a while ago by a shopping mall, and the reason they hired us was this. They had all these retailers inside the mall. All the retailers got together, and they approached the mall and said, listen, our biggest problem is foot traffic. Not enough people come to this mall. And if more people came to the mall, we'd have more foot traffic, and we'd be doing better. It's up to you to help us get some foot traffic in your mall. Okay, so the mall owner went, okay, you know what? I'm going to try. I'm going to try and do something. So through a friend of a friend of a friend, he somehow gets to Yoko Ono. And Yoko agrees to do a John Lennon original artwork show at the mall. Okay, so if John Lennon doodled on a cocktail napkin, they framed it, and you can go look at it at this show. Okay? That's what happened. So they do the show, they promote it well, 1,000 people descend on this mall. 1,000 people. And it didn't mean a thing to those stores. They didn't do any more volume than they did the last week, the last month, the last year. Why? Because their inventory wasn't viable. That's just the truth of it. That's a true story. Now, it should have been, right? Oh, look at that store. You want to go there? All right, I'm going to go to this store, but meet me at this other one, right? Everybody should have walked around the mall. Everybody should have seen stuff, okay? They didn't. because they saw the inventory was old. It was uninteresting. It didn't matter. There is no better marketing for a retail store than having the right merchandise. Because think about that for a minute. Those 1,000 people descended on that mall and they walked around, okay? How much marketing does any one of those stores have to do to get someone to be willing to walk back into that mall and back into that store after they've been there and decided they didn't have merchandise that I wanted? Think about that. So having the right merchandise is the best marketing you'll ever have. I have so many stores that think, oh, I just got to get more floor traffic, I'm going to be fine. Not necessarily. You need to make sure your assortment is right first. You need to make sure that assortment is changing on a regular basis. By the way, changing the assortment is also gives you things to post on social media that creates more interest in your store. Okay? All right. So if I review what we did so far, right? Selling cost improvement got us $15,000. Markdown improvement, 2%, got us $7,500. And then doing better at buying got us another $15,000. So in this instance, on a store doing about $750,000, we found $37,600 just sitting right there, just by making those little 2% tweaks. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about diamonds are in their backyard. Because guess what? That's money they found without spending any money at all, without selling anything more, okay? Just by making those simple tweaks to what they're doing right now, okay? That's why this stuff is so important, okay? It's not just hanging up pretty, cool-looking things and then taking money out of the drawer. Doesn't work that way. Managing and curating that inventory assortment is everything, okay? All right. So I want to give these other two quotes here before we open it up for some questions. But the first one is a Ben Franklin one. This is actually in the forward to Poor Richard's Almanac. Remember Poor Richard's Almanac? Remember that from school? You had to read Poor Richard's Almanac. There's a story in the very beginning of it, and it takes place in the 1700s. And what's happening is all of the retailers, seriously, the retailers in this little village are freaking out, okay? Why? Because they're being hit by taxes, right? Because all these taxes are coming. We don't know how we're going to survive. Oh my God, all these taxes. What are we going to do? We don't know. We don't know what we're going to do, right? They turn to Father Abraham, okay? Father Abraham is the old man of the village, okay? He has been there for forever. They turn to him and say, Father Abraham, you've been in retail longer than any of us. What do we do about all these taxes? And Father Abraham replies, we are taxed twice as much by our idleness, 3 times as much by our pride, and 4 times as much by our folly. What does that mean? It means it's more expensive to do nothing. It means it's more expensive to be prideful, to think I know when I really don't, and not really dig into the numbers, and 4 times as much by our own folly, to just think, I'm just going to let this thing go the way it goes. I'm just going to believe something that doesn't really necessarily going to happen, but I'm just going to hope that it happens, and it happens. I'm going to manage by hope. Okay? Literally written by Ben Franklin, a story about retail. Didn't think that was going to happen, did you? All right. Now, the second quote is from Peter Drucker. You probably know this. A lot of you probably do. It's all good ideas degenerate into work. If you liked all the things we talked about, selling costs, markdown improvements, and purchasing better, okay, all of those things mean that you've got to now dig in, right? Got to figure out, if you're going to do selling costs, you got to figure out, what did I pay these people? What did they sell, right? Markdowns, I got to look at what caused all those markdowns, right? And purchasing, I got to look at, what am I buying? What should my inventory be? What do I want it to be? What do I want my sales forecast and my inventory to be, so that I plan those things better? Okay? All right. So the new thing here is that this RSG planning thing is now partnered with Big Hairy Dog. So Big Hairy Dog is going to start delivering that to you. Okay, so that's available to you. We also offer some other services, just so you know. We do some bookkeeping. I don't want you doing your own bookkeeping. I want you focused on your inventory and your sales and your customers and certainly your staff. So if you're in the back doing bank reconciliations, you're not helping your business. You need to do something different. We will enter purchase orders for you. We know every version of Retail Pro there is. So if you don't like entering purchase orders, we'll do that for you. And if you don't like doing social media posting, we'll take care of that for you too. Okay? Just want to make those things of interest to you. If you're interested in any of those, reach out to anyone at Big Hairy Dog. They'll get you connected to the right people, and we'll make sure this thing gets done for you. Okay? And for just being willing to do this today, you get a free hour with me. Okay? We will do an actual inventory analysis for you. Okay? We'll go through and figure out where we might find some of that money that we found for other people. We're going to show you where and how it's going to happen. And if you like it and want more help in doing it, we'll give you more help in doing it. Okay? I'm going to leave my contact information up there. That's me. That's the company. That's the website. That's my cell phone. Okay? And below that is my email. I don't go to bed at night unless my inbox is empty. The reason is, I figure if you write to me, you're not looking for a new chocolate chip cookie recipe, right? You're looking for information or some help for your business, and so I want to make sure we're responsive. And one of the things that I have built Retail Smart Guys on, and that I'm very, very, very focused on, is fast response. We want to make sure that if you write to us, we respond quickly. That is a hallmark of what we do. Okay? Okay. So with that, Paula, that's the presentation. Okay?
Thanks, Dan.
If we have some questions, I'm more than happy to field those.
We do. So, so Nicole asked if our departments are out of control, not cleaned up, and inherited from previous versions of Retail Pro, how does that affect tracking and forecasting accuracy?
Well, here's the thing. Depending on the version of Retail Pro that you're on, okay, I just want to sort of put the contact information at the same time. First off, depending on the version that you're on, any and all of this is fixable. We see that a lot, right? There's a version, we've got a DCS structure, it doesn't make sense, we don't like it anymore, business evolved, the business has changed. There are tools inside Retail Pro, version 8, version 9, and Prism that will enable you to get all that done, okay? So if you have that, the steps are, first you got to figure out what you want it to be, okay? And then work with Big Hairy Dog and with us. We'll walk you through how to make all that happen. It's different depending on the version that you're on, okay? But there are definitely ways to change your DCS structure. And listen, the DCS structure is a buyer's tool. It's not for the customers, it's for the buyers. And so if it doesn't give you what you need to empower you when you go out to the marketplace, you need to change your DCS structure, and we want to help you do that. Okay?
Yep, we can do that.
Okay. Next
and
one.
Then we also had, do you help guide and make the structure better? Absolutely,
yes.
They do. We've seen it do it with lots of our clients that have been very happy with that result too. So, and then, sorry, go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, here's the thing, right? Again, it's got to reflect how you think of your inventory and how you want to buy it. And if it doesn't feel that way, you've got to get that going for sure. So we're sometimes it takes a little bit to do it, right? But it's not super painful or awful. And again, if inventory is your biggest asset and the most important thing, getting your DCS structure right is super, super important. So we got to make sure we have that nailed down that way.
Yep. Okay. And then Travis asked, always struggling with running reports to find the turn rate reports would be running and for what time frame. And I'll real quick offer this is, Trevor, I definitely recommend spending some time with Dan. And then Dan has worked with Jeff to build reports. So chances are you probably already have the reports. And if not, after working with Dan, he can tell you what you need and we can have somebody drop those in for you. But chances are you already have them in your database. Yeah.
Probably. So let's start with the basics. Turn is what you sold over. First off, turn is an annual stat. Okay. And it is what you sold for the year divided by your average inventory over that year. Okay. The tricky part of it is the average inventory part. Okay. What you do is you can back into what your inventory was on average by you could take your inventory today, add back the sales, subtract the receiving. That gives you your inventory as of the first of the month. Do that again month by month by month, and then come up and then build an average for that. Okay, we do that as part of our planning process, by the way, so we take that headache away from you. But you could do that within reporting within Retail Pro for sure. And the other report that I just, as long as we talked about reporting, Jeff Kearnshaw and I put together a vendor scorecard. I'm a huge fan of that one. If you don't have it, reach out, get that done, because there's no better way to negotiate with your vendors than a vendor scorecard. So there you go. Okay. All right,
Yep.
Paul. Any
And that one
others?
just takes a few minutes, I think, for Jeff to
Yeah.
drop it in. He already has it. Yep.
Yep.
If you
Built
don't
already.
already have it, you may already have it depending on when your
And
reports module was
and I
dropped in.
think
You may already have it.
and another webinar we might do, Paul, that just hit me just now, is that it's not enough just to have the report. It's also how do you use it with the vendor? What do you say to the vendor? How do you use that to negotiate with the vendor and that kind of stuff? Okay. Oh, I see Beth's question. I'll just answer it right
Go
now.
ahead. Go for it.
We're tracking.
I
We're
feel like it's
tracking.
called
Look,
vendor
look,
report card.
they're coming in. It's called the vendor scorecard. Okay. But we're tracking receiving, we're tracking selling, and we're tracking what's still left on hand. Okay. And the idea of it is to be able to look at, well, you know what? I'm going to grab a slide from a different presentation, well, because I want to talk about this one
Yeah.
thing really fast. Okay. Did I put it in this one? Let me see. Maybe here. Here it is. Look at this for a minute. Okay. Look at this slide for a minute. Okay. This is the difference between cash margin and gross margin. Okay. If you buy something for, let's just say you bought something from a vendor for $1,000. You plan to sell it for $2,200, right? Not particularly piggy, 55% initial markup, right, et cetera. And you're thinking you're going to get $1,200 out of it, right? 2,200 minus 1,000. Well, what happens? You actually really only sell 1,700. You didn't sell it all. You spilled coffee on one. You took one home for you, et cetera, whatever it's going to be, right? So your actual cash margin is $700, not the $1,200, and the unachieved cash margin is $500. This is what we're doing in the vendor scorecard, okay? Because think of it this way, right? If you buy something for $10 and sell it for 20, Retail Pro will tell you that your gross margin is 50%, and that's true. But what if you sold one, but you purchased 30? From a cash perspective, you would be upside down, right? So part of what we're looking for in that vendor scorecard is, did I cash out of the merchandise? Okay, it's a longer discussion. More than happy to dig into that more with you on that one, but that's what we're looking for. We're looking to see, is my cash margin different from what my planned margin was? So that way the vendor can help me figure out, how do I get my money out of these goods? Okay. Okay. Paul, are there any other questions?
I think that's it.
You think that's it?
And
okay.
then, so one, I think we already answered this, but I just want to make sure. So, yes, you can schedule some time with Dan, and he can help take a look at your DCS codes and help guide you on what's needed to make it better. Dan, did you have anything to add to that?
No, but I see some of the questions popped in here, so let's just see
got
what
it.
those are. Okay.
If the pricing and data is managed manually, is implementing EDI. Sorry, I'm getting a little, there we go. Based on the data available from Retail Pro, can we report on, is Prism better or worse than V9?
Well, I think you have to decide what you want to report on first of all before you do that, right? The thing about Retail Pro, I'm going to tell you my own little story here, okay? Back in version 8, I'm going to answer your question, don't worry, but I'm going to get there, okay? Back in version 8, Retail Pro came up with the report designer, and I was the guy that was implementing and training Retail Pro. I was like what Jeff is, what Jeff does today, I was doing that thing, right? And so I got all excited about the designer because we could do anything we wanted, right? So I went to my best retailers, and I was just like, now I have a report designer. Make anything you want. Make anything you want. What do you want? I can make it, whatever you want. And the answer I got 10 out of 10 times was, what's everybody else doing?
Yes.
My suggestion to you, okay, is step away from the computer, okay, take out blank pieces of paper and draw the reports that if you had a magic report genie that could tell you everything you want to know, what are the reports you want to have? What's on the report? What are the columns? What are the rows? How does it sort? How does it total? How does it filter? That kind of stuff. Draw that first. Once you know that, then you can answer the V9 versus Prism one. My inclination is there's going to be more available to you in Prism than in version 9, okay, and easier to get to. But I'd like to see what you want first before we counsel you on that one, Okay, because the biggest mistake people make in reporting is not knowing what they want, and not to me reporting is about what do I want to know, how often do I want to know it, every day, every week, before I go to the market, etc. And what am I going to do with it once I have it? Okay, if you don't know that, you don't know what to report on. And a lot of people just go, oh, I'm going to learn the reports. And they wander into the reporting module, and then there's a bajillion reports in there, and they go, I'll just call a vendor, right? That's the end of it, right? You have to know what you want to know before you go in there. And if you're not on a regular diet of running reports and studying the business numerically that way, you're leaving money on the table. So part of what we want to do is give you a really solid reporting strategy so you know what you're going to run, how often you're going to run it, and no different than you block out lunch or you block out vacation or you block out time with your kids or you block out exercise or anything else that you're doing. You have to block out a moment in your week or your month where you're just going to stop and look at the reports. I always say this. When you run a bestseller report, it's not to see who number one is, because you probably already knew that. It's who's number 4, who's number 5, right? That's where the opportunity is sleeping in your store. So I think to answer your question on that one, I would first want to know what you want to know, and then we can probably guide you. I would say more than, I'm almost sure you're going to find a better job of it in Prism than you are in B9, but but probably both. But probably it'll be easier to get to in Prism if it's something that's not already there that you are hungering for. But it's not about what do we invent. It's more about what do you want? What do you need to run the store?
Yeah, and I think the number one misconception I hear over and over. If I had a penny for every time I've heard this, I would probably be retired and just here for a good time, not here for both. Is how come every retailer should be doing this?
Yeah, no kidding.
Every report, they think that there's a magic report that everybody's using across, and nobody is using the same report the same way. So that's always good. And then in Prism, I will say some things in Prism is you can create these dashboards where you can have like, hey, these are my open to buy reports, and they're all there, and they're so much easier to schedule them and email them, and it's not like you have to know the magic code and grab your cheat sheet. It's like you're in there, you can schedule them, you can make changes to them, so it's a lot easier. We still always start with exactly what Dan said. Give me the reports you're already using, write on the report the changes you want or what you want to look different, and that's where we want to hone you in on. And then after that, you can go and play and make changes and do all the things you want to do, because in Prism there's a lot more capability for anybody. I mean, depending on whatever level you're at, if you are the person that's going to write the SQL, we have that for you. But if you're not, if you're the person like myself, it's like I just want to add some columns, move some columns. Now you can access different tables even as a basic user. So there's some good stuff there. But again, I would start with some one-on-one time with Dan. He can get you on the right track, get you set up, get you going, and then you can decide how you want to use that information going forward. And we've been partnering with Dan with clients for years and years and years. And I actually just had a Prism demo with a client yesterday, and we're like, yep, and this is what Dan's going to need. So it was so some good information there. Yep.
So and let me just say this: if you're struggling with reporting, or you're struggling with the numbers, or you want to know what should I know, or you're not sure about that stuff, that's what we're here to help you with, right? It's right now 10 to 2 here in Pacific time. I've been talking to a different retailer every hour of the day up until now, right? So the difference between me and you is I just get to see more. I get to see more of what people are doing and that kind of stuff. And so it isn't like I'd like to tell you that I've got some kind of like thing going on here where I've got, this retail genius happening here. But the reality is I just get to see more than you guys do. And because of that, I get to look at more. Okay. And I can help guide you with that and make sure that you're getting what you need to get. And also, I always say in terms of talking to programmers, I speak retail and I speak Vulcan, right? Which means that if it's technical, I can talk to the technical people and help you get what you need on that and make all that happen, right? The most important thing out of all of this, though, right, is that does it improve your cash flow? And that's what we're here to do.
What do you do
We're
with
here
the
to make
data?
sure, it's what you, yeah, right, exactly. It's how do we get better cash flow into all of your businesses? That's what planning does. That's what the entire purpose of all this is. That's why we're doing it. That's what we want to do for you. And look, at the end of the day, all I really care about is making super retailers, right? Just selfishly, what I want is I want you to look at a retailer and go, boy, I want to be like that guy. Oh, well, that guy has Retail Pro, he has Prism, and he has and he's using the planning. I want to be like them, right? And I'll just say this last thing, and then we can wrap up. If you go to our website now, our logo has written across it, planning with heart. And the reason we did that is because we genuinely care about the people that we work with. Okay, we don't just go like, oh, well, it's another person, it's another customer, that kind of stuff. We are there to make sure that you're doing well, your families are doing well, you have enough money to do everything that you want to do with your business and your family and your life, and that, you know what, we're having fun doing it because God knows life's challenging enough, right? So let's at least have some fun with this whole thing. And there's nothing more fun than getting a little more cash into the business. So that's what we're here to do. Okay, my contact information is there. You can also reach me through Big Hairy Dog, and I hope you guys take advantage of the free hour because it can only help you. And that's all I really want to do. Okay.
Thanks, Dan. Right. We appreciate it. And then anybody has any questions, you can reach out to us or you can reach out to Dan directly, and we'd love to help you. Yeah, just email. Here, I don't know if it'll let me drag it here. I'm going to send you an email. I'll send everybody an email that has the contact information as well, and also a video of a link for today's video. And then you can respond back with any additional questions. And then Dan can take a look at your reports and let you know what you're missing. And then we can get them dropped in for you if you don't already have them.
Terrific. Well, thanks. And thanks everybody for being here and for everybody who's going to watch this video later. We're here to, philosophically, we changed our whole, we're here to serve. That's what we're here to do. We're here to serve. So how can I help you? And how can our team help you? That's what and how can Big Hairy Dog help you? That's what we're all here to do. Okay?
Thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks everybody.
Bye-bye.